1987 on Violet Island, he found part of a lower jaw of a duck-billed dinosaur. It too was in fresh condition. So yes, unfossilized dinosaurs have been found. A dinosaur was found here recently that said it had the heart inside, and it was a 4-chambered heart. Well, I don't think they're really positive it had a 4-chambered heart yet, but even if it did, it doesn't prove anything. Most reptiles have a 3-chambered heart. Birds have 4. So some have argued that dinosaurs turned to birds, which is a ridiculous idea. We covered that on video number 4. But they're using this as evidence that, this proves dinosaurs turned to birds. It is interesting. Very rarely do soft tissues, like hearts and lungs, fossilize, but occasionally they do, which to me is indication there was a flood. Had to be buried quickly, or it would have rotted in just a short time. Okay, next question. If there really was a flood, where'd all the human bones go? Fair question. Marvin Lubenow, one of the world's experts on fossils of humans, says about 4,000 human fossils have been found, most of them very fragmentary, sometimes only a small piece, but he says about 4,000. Here's my solution to this question. When God first made the world, about 6,000 years ago, there were 2 people, but the earth was full of animals and full of plants. When the flood came, 4,400 years later, the earth is still full of animals and still full of plants, but still not full of people. So when the flood came, there weren't as many people to be killed as there were animals, so they would be less likely to be found. Secondly, people lived longer back in those days and probably grew much larger. The purpose of the flood was to destroy mankind. And people are smarter than animals. Well, some people are smarter than some animals. And they would tend to avoid drowning till the last minute. So they wouldn't be fossilized because they would end up on top and they rot. They don't end up buried where they can be preserved. The Bible says there were giants in the earth in those days. If people before the flood were larger, much larger than today, then because of the evolutionary preconceived idea that some people have, they wouldn't recognize these as human bones because they're simply too big. You find a fragment of a huge bone, they would say, well, it must be, a giant sloth or a dinosaur or something else. And it could be. But I think there's a prejudice to thinking that man used to be smaller and now we're bigger. Therefore, if you find small human bones, that's fine. But if you find big human bones, they're not human. So basically, number 1, there were less people to be killed. Number 2, people would tend to not rot because they end up on top instead of buried because they're smarter. Number 3, they might not be recognized as human. And the purpose of the flood was to destroy man. Okay? Next question. Where did Noah get pitch? Isn't it from post-flood oil? On my debate number 7, I debated against a former preacher turned atheist. One of his arguments was, the Bible says Noah put pitch on the ark and pitch is made from oil. Therefore, oil formed during the flood, and so the creationists have a problem because this can't be true. Well, now the Bible says in Genesis chapter 6, God told Noah to pitch it within and without with pitch. In Exodus chapter 2, the little ark that Moses was hid in was daubed with slime and pitch, and she put the child therein. In Isaiah chapter 34, it says, the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust into brimstone, and the land shall become burning pitch. It shall not be quenched day nor night, the smoke thereof shall go up forever. So pitch apparently produces smoke when it burns. If you get an old dictionary, you'll find before they even discovered oil or started using commercial drilling for oil in the early 1800s, 1820s and 30s, like Pennsylvania oil wells, one of the first ones that they were using. For one thing, nobody had cars back then, so oil was not in big demand. The only use for oil was in lamps to burn, and so they were using whale oil for that generally. But in 1928, the dictionary would say, pitch is a thick, tenacious substance, the juice of a species of pine or fir. So you take pine or fir trees, you get the juice, you distill it down, and you make pitch. There were entire industries in the 1700s and 1800s producing pitch from trees to use for ships to waterproof them. So it's not made from oil. First mistake. When kept long in fusion with vinegar, it becomes dry and brown and forms some other stuff. It's the resin of pine or turpentine. It's used in caulking ships and paying the sides and bottom. Webster's 1828 dictionary. So the argument that they couldn't have pitch to build the ark because pitch is made from oil is a flawed argument. So next question. Was ancient man primitive? I don't think so. There's a great book on this available from our ministry called The Puzzle of Ancient Man. if you want to read about some amazing things found indicating ancient man was incredibly intelligent. This little airplane was found in a South American grave, estimated to be about 1,000 years old. The Smithsonian has it labeled as a stylized insect. Does that look like an insect, anybody out here? Looks like an airplane to me. Oftentimes, we get the false idea that ancient man was dumb and modern man is smart, which is all part of the evolution theory. Quite the opposite is true. Ancient man was incredibly intelligent. This iron pot was found inside a lump of coal. They have stones in Peru that weigh 20,000 tons. The biggest crane on earth today can lift 3,000 tons. How did they move a 20,000-ton stone into place? Nobody has a clue how it was done. But they did it, okay? And they fit so tightly together, even today you still can't get a piece of paper in between a lot of these walls. This bell was found inside a lump of coal. We'll cover lots more on that on video number 6 about human artifacts found in coal. This is zinc and silver vessel found in solid rock, supposed to be 600 million years old. They found a sunken ship in the Aegean Sea, which is near Greece, part of Greece and that area. Inside the sunken ship was an analog computing device. The ship sank about 100 BC. It's in the National Science Foundation now. A computer on board a ship 2,000 years old. And you think ancient man was dumb and modern man is smart? The hammer that was found in New London, Texas, 1934, Battelle Laboratories said it's 96% iron, 2.6% chlorine, 0.74% sulfur, no carbon, and yet it is stainless steel. It won't rust. They knew how to make that long before the flood. This battery was found in Iraq, supposed to be 2,000 years old. They had electricity a long time ago. One of the Egyptian hieroglyphics shows mummies connected to wires going to some kind of generator. Apparently they used electricity during the Egyptian times. They certainly knew how to do brain surgery. Oftentimes human skulls are found where they had cut holes in them to work on the brain or let out the evil spirits or whatever, and the hole healed shut, proving the guy survived the surgery. This metallic sphere was found with 3 lines around it. It's found in Precambrian material, supposed to be 2.8 billion years old, obviously worked by humans for some reason. A fulsome blade embedded in a lower surface of travertine crust from Sandia Cave, New Mexico. The layer of travertine is said to be 250,000 years old, and yet there's a piece of, like an arrowhead or something, stuck in it. On the right, you see the mortar and pestle found in a mine under tertiary deposits 30 to 50 million years old in California. All sorts of things were found in underneath this layer of lava. It's supposed to be 30 million years old. Now, the layer is not 30 million years old. That's the whole problem. Okay? What appeared to be a standard geode was picked up in California. Fossil shells encrusting its surface are at least 500,000 years old. This object came to be known as the Coso artifact. The names of the people who found the artifact were listed right here for you. They found the item in 1961 on a mountain 4,300 feet high, 340 feet above the dry Owens Lake, 6 miles northeast of Alancha, California. Geologists think it's about 1,000 years old. Owens Lake was as high as the top of that peak. 1,000 years ago, it was that high. No professional scientist has ever investigated the artifact, even though it has been found to be magnetic. It is quite similar technologically to a modern-day ceramic superconductor capacitor. These little metal shavings were found, nanotechnology artifacts in Upper Pleistocene, supposed to be 2 million years old, discovered in the Ural Mountains in Russia. The report, Central Scientific Russian Institute for Geology and Prospecting of Precious Metals, emphasizes the possibility of an extraterrestrial origin. In other words, somebody came from outer space and left these here. Real tiny, beautifully designed artifacts in metal, but the rock's supposed to be too old. The size of these range from a maximum ½ inch, 1.2 inches, down to an incredible 0.003 millimeters, 1/10,000th of an inch. Exact measurements of these, often microscopically small objects, have shown that the dimensions of the spirals are in the so-called